3, 2.
So here we are again, another After the Mic Drops episode, talking about the wonderful Ehab.
Absolutely.
Podcast that you did with him.
Yeah, what a guy. So Ehab, I mean, he's worked for some big companies, Johnson & Johnson, PepsiCo, and now he's a regional TA director at Delivery Hero.
Still a big brand, obviously not as big as...
Yeah. I think he would refer to Delivery Hero as a startup from the companies he's been at before. But really good episode, and we managed to talk about some really interesting topics. We went through OKR setting, particularly relevant when you're looking at like changes in expectations. We have just launched our own OKRs internally, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
Shout out to Lattice for that. But
sponsorships are available. Lattice
sponsorships are available for the 11 viewers that we currently have, and they're probably all going to buy Lattice. So let's definitely get a couple of $100,000 on the sponsorship there. But yeah, setting expectations was quite an interesting conversation with Ehab. I think expectations vary company to company,
yeah, of course.
Depending on size. And he was talking a little bit about, going from Johnson & Johnson, PepsiCo to Delivery Hero. When you're talking to somebody internally about things need to be quick, that's a 24-month turnaround in PepsiCo.
Yeah.
Whereas quick in a startup is tomorrow.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday. And Delivery Hero is somewhere in between, so it might be in a month or so. But your assumption of expectations need to having that conversation and having good OKR practices is obviously going to make the difference when you're moving different companies. He also said something a little bit interesting that I particularly found was that 50% of FTSE 100 companies have a decentralized TA.
Yeah, I would not have
guessed that, because we were talking a little bit about networking. And specifically, we do a lot of external networking because we're a small company. But in some of those larger businesses with a completely decentralized TA, you spend most of your time internally networking.
Yeah, of course.
Your internal personal brand is potentially more important than your external. Lewis Milford, our first ever podcast guest, he said exactly the same. I think at the time, probably been hacked down now, but at the time there was 1,000 people in the Microsoft TA team. So he often would spend all of his time from a networking capacity internal.
Yeah. And it's crazy when you think of these big FMGC, these big conglomerates, the amount does that mean? Fast-moving consumer goods companies?
Sick. Yeah, I knew that. No,
doesn't it?
Yeah, no. That's what
it's
I was
not.
I was testing you.
Let me know in the comments. About that.
I was testing you. So you got it right. Well done.
Yeah, like big producing companies. So you've got 1,000 people in that TA team.
Mm-hmm.
The churn rate is going to be huge anyway.
Huge, yeah.
So you've never been right. Ticked. I've met everyone. I know all these 1,000 people.
You're consistently doing it.
Yeah. So your profile building it's almost constant, right?
Yeah.
Every day you're trying to build your profile, educate people to how you work. It's a never-ending cycle of.
It's interesting because I think when you're in that position, how much attention should you give to your external personal brand? Because typically you only start investing in that when you need a new job.
Yeah, true.
But actually, it's going to be beneficial for your career, for your wider network, potentially even for your internal network if you've got a better external brand.
Yeah.
And then you haven't got to sort of jump into panic mode to building a brand externally when you need a new job or when you're interested in looking at a new career.
I think if you're working in a business the size of those businesses we spoke about with Ehab, then your internal brand and your external brand are
almost the same. Yeah,
you're not. It's not a business like ours when we know everybody inside out and we know how people act and we know their brand and we know their values and their morals and stuff. Whereas if you're doing that, if you're trying to do that for 1,000 people in a TA team, doesn't even include the wider business. Imagine how crazy that would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I just hope one day that we are 1,000 people, and we have to spend that much time in networking internally. The last thing that we sort of everyone gets to ask a question, and Ehab's question was, what comes first, or what's more important, performance or results?
Yeah, I saw that. It's quite an interesting question from Jaime, isn't it? And
what do you focus on? Do you focus on performance, which then ultimately drives results, or do you focus on the results and allow people to figure out themselves out to get them? I don't know.
I mean, you could debate this like chicken and egg, innit? But
yeah,
I think it would, for me, that would ultimately depend on the business size, right? Like we, at the moment, business of our size, we need results.
Yeah.
Anything has to deliver a result, an outcome, right? So whether it's Wreckfest or whether it's a campaign or whether it's meetings in Berlin, that any spend needs to be associated to some kind of result.
ROI.
Yeah. So almost the performance of how we got those results isn't as important right now, but for bigger businesses, I think you can focus on that continuous improvement. And
I think you're absolutely right. If you're focused on performance, the outcomes will come.
Yeah.
The results will come. Yeah. But you're focusing on becoming the best at those little things that drive the results at the end of the day.
Well, you'd hope that it'd be cyclical, right? That your results would then impact your performance next time you do it. It's like you're constantly evolving, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Who knows? That's our view.
Well, listen to the podcast and find Ehab's view.
Yeah, exactly that. Good. Last plug that.
So who's next?
Who is next? Great question. So we filmed a bunch in the day in Berlin, had a whole roster of guests.
You've just ruined the illusion that they're recorded like every...
Yeah, no, we record them all separately, but it would be kind of awkward because we're in the same thing in every one.
What, producer Rosie didn't make you take different sets of clothes?
No, producer Rosie wasn't thinking that far ahead because she was dealing with broken equipment.
Oh dear.
However, we finished the day on Matthias Schmeisser, who was a fascinating guy, really cool to meet him. He's the global head of TA at a company called Emnify.
Yep.
And they're doing some really cool stuff. He's worked really hard on his personal brand as well. So he's like got a really cool network. He's got some really good information, and it's a really good podcast. So make sure you check that one out.
Yeah, amazing. His name constantly seems to come up in communities and references to stuff. So.
He's just doing some really cool stuff in the TA scene. So we talk a little bit about that.
Amazing. Really looking forward to that. So there you go. Catch it live.
Done.